Insurance.
Hi everyone, welcome to the quarterfinals of Malaysia Internationals 2019. First and foremost, congratulations to both teams for making it thus far. My name is Kimberley, I'll be your chair. Standing alongside me is Wazir and Hannah. Right, on the motion that this House supports states issuing guest worker visas which do not apply minimum wage laws, I invite the Prime Minister. Tegjeu. Woo!
On government, we believe that guest worker visas provide economic opportunities for these tourists or visitors who come to these countries to find work, but it also creates like better economic prosperity for the people within that country as well by lowering the prices of products and giving empowerment for local businesses. So those will be the two issues that we're talking about. How does this affect these local businesses and how does this benefit consumers? The burden that we will take upon in this debate is that given that this is a support mission, we feel that as long as that there is a benefit, then that comes out of this particular policy, we think that therefore it is something that we should probably do, and that is something that we support. I will tell you why the harms or the possible harms are things that we don't necessarily care about or aren't as big as the opposition might want to push. So we'll set up in this video. What are the kinds of states that are most likely going to issue guest worker visas? I think that it's not likely that it's going to be developing nations. I think that it's more likely going to be developed countries where they have not enough workers, where they don't have enough human capital, which is why they're looking for workers. This looks like countries in Australia. The type of jobs that will provide you is, for example, fruit picking in Australia, where a bunch of Malaysians and my friends as well go there every once in a while to pick fruit. They come back, got a bunch of money, they're happy, right? So those are the kinds of countries that we're talking about. Secondly, we think that the types of work that is available also are oftentimes seasonal, right? Where oftentimes you don't necessarily need a lot of workers to be full-time. You only need workers to be there in a short amount of time, mostly fruits and agriculture, but also in terms of, like, for example, restaurants where you have, like, for example, Christmas, where there's a lot. Okay, Christmas people don't go to restaurants. You have certain celebrations which probably people want to go out and have and be there. There are certain occasions, probably holidays, where people are more, and they need more workers than usual, right? So those are the types of work that would necessarily be there. So let's talk about the type of people who would probably want to take these guest working visas. We'll posit to you that it's not often people who need the money, because oftentimes if you are poor and you do need the money, oftentimes you would want to look for a more sustaining job which has more long term and not necessarily like a 3-month contract because your visa only will expire after 3 months. So if you do need the money, oftentimes these people from, like, let's say other countries will find jobs and will apply for these visas. I think that if you are looking for money and you are looking to save the long term, the investment of you popping up a bit of capital for you to get the visas and to establish your life there is something that is worthwhile for these individuals as well. So these are people who don't need to stay there long enough, who don't really need the money, but they're just going there to travel and to look at the world, and at the same time probably make some pocket money on the side. Probably like a lot of debaters now that to go to China for exclusively. We go under tourist visas. Sorry, Chinese government. But we think that it would probably be better if we go under like a guest worker visa. We actually have the legitimacy to work there. Let's talk, before we go on to the benefits, let's talk about why are we okay with these laws or these visas not applying minimum wage laws. Because we have to recognize that the purpose of minimum wage laws being there is one, to ensure sustainability of your life within that particular country. They have a basic standard of living. No, that a lot of these individuals could probably have already afford being able to live there to begin with, and they're just trying to make money on top of that. But also, we think that secondly, they don't necessarily need to sustain their livelihood, right? They don't have to buy a house, they don't have to send their kids to school because they're not from there and they don't have to stay there long anyway. So we think that it's okay that they don't necessarily take these, they don't get these minimum wage and they are paid lower than that, because these are often individuals. And we also think that exploitation won't necessarily happen because you're only there for a limited amount of time. And even if there was an exploitation that does happen, we think that that's when there's an easy opt-out system out of that, and you will be sent back to your country as well. But the reason why exploitation won't necessarily happen is because oftentimes, given that these countries and these businesses need workers, they would probably want to treat their workers fairly, because these workers, when they go back to their country, they tell their friends, hey, I went fruit picking in Australia, I got good money, I was treated nicely, they were all friendly, how about you guys come with me next time? So this allows, before every season, you have enough workers, and you want to treat those workers nicely so that you have a continuous flow of these workers coming into your business or coming into your country as well. Now, with the mitigations and the setting up. Let's talk about the outcomes. First, regarding local business. Oftentimes in these countries, because the nature of the business that they're going into, a lot of these businesses are seasonal. For example, if you have like places like tourist areas, it's not always full, and you don't always need a lot of work. But if it's like during holidays or when people have time off of work, they probably will be more full than usual. Just like in agriculture, like I mentioned earlier, there are certain seasons that you may need more workers than others. The problem is that in their country, you don't have people who want to do that work, because these are often developed countries, and usually the local citizens within these countries don't want to do these low-skilled work and don't want to do these menial kinds of work. So you don't have enough workers. What happens then is that you would be forced to hire full-time workers or import workers from abroad to work there full-time. The problem with this, if you don't allow guest worker visas, is that you would be forced to pay, like, because of the worker or worker laws, you are protected to work for a certain amount of time. What this means is that you're forced to pay that farmer, or you're forced to pay these farmers like for a year and hire them for a year, but you don't necessarily use them for that entire year. And this increases the cost, and it hard for local businesses to thrive because
why can't we issue guest worker visas with minimum wage?
Because, okay, I'll talk about that. So we think that's also probably one thing that could happen. We think that on top of that, we would also allow for worker visas without minimum wage, because oftentimes local businesses don't have enough money to be able to reach that point, because in these kinds of industries, you need a large amount of workers, and you don't have enough money to necessarily hire that large amount of workers. So the comparison isn't you hire workers with minimum wage and you hire workers without minimum wage. It's hire workers without minimum wage or not hire workers at all, because you cannot afford that minimum wage to begin with. So we think that it's better for local businesses for the field to thrive and be more manageable in their expenses, because you only have to pay these people for a certain amount of time. This is also better for consumers, because if you pay these workers less and don't necessarily call that exploitation and they're only here for a limited amount of time, this reduces the overall cost of that production, which means that it translates to lower cost for the consumers. So even if they say in their law that we may cause people to lose jobs, so we already told you how people take jobs anyway, that's a worthwhile trade-off, because you make things cheaper for everyone else. With that betterment of that economy for the consumers and the ability for these local businesses to thrive, both government extremely powerful.
Yeah. And then Kim, let's please open up outside and invite Bello. Thank you. Woo, Sharwin.
I think Prime Minister's strength is the way it's not just about fruit picking, it's also about the major projects and major organizations and companies. We're talking about construction companies, we're talking about domestic worker agencies that can afford a high turnover rate. Meaning these are companies that hire and replenish their worker pool or workforce every cycle and at every phase. Meaning fruit picking, they hire like laborers to like harvest the fruit, they hire laborers to work in like the refining plant whatsoever, right? So examples we're talking about such as are examples like low skilled menial laborers. We're talking about individuals that are hired to have nails or fill up cement at construction site, or they are hired to clean or be a janitor in like a certain company for like 6 months to a year, right? So we're talking about numerous individuals at the low skill labor level that that are also exploited in that particular circumstance. Let's reframe the intent of the guest worker going into these countries to begin with. Because Ameer told you that these guest workers don't necessarily need the money, they just go to Australia as a tourist activity, for example, right? To pick fruit from apple orchards. The thing, and he said that if they need money, they probably look for a long-term job. This is not true primarily because foreign workers can't look for long-term jobs already. It's very difficult for them to look for a long-term job and secure contracts primarily because companies don't have much access to them. So what they do is companies exploit the guest worker access to recruit laborers en masse from villages, for example, and the guest workers from these foreign countries will hope that they will get a gateway to longer term contracts in countries like Australia or countries like US, after which they will hope to reapply for a longer term contract there. Or if they don't get a longer term contract, what they intend to do is they save up the money they get from 6 months to a year that they work at that particular place to give the money back as remittance to their family after working there for 6 months to a year. I think that's a fair characterization of the intent of the foreign labor that goes to another country, like takes a plane, flies 8 hours there to work 6 months to a year instead of like studying in their own country or working in their own country. I think it's a fair characterization. I don't think tourists go there just to pick fruit for 6 months or year. That doesn't make sense, right? I agree with Ameer's trade with regards to this debate happening in developed countries. Yeah, but I think there's a more specific nuance in this debate. This debate happens in countries that take in the most immigrant workers on the short term. USA, Germany, Australia. Within these countries, there's a trend of rising xenophobia, primarily because of two reasons. Firstly, the locals are afraid of the huge influx of migrants due to employers being able to recruit them through this guest worker visa policy thing, right? Secondly, locals in states like Virginia and Indiana, which are inherently poor conservative states, that also have a lot of low-skilled jobs, the locals there fear that their jobs are being taken away by the cheap labor that's coming in due to this influx of guest worker visas. Therefore, removing minimum wage allows for the employers that employ guest workers from foreign countries to obtain as many cheap labor as possible, which angers the locals even more and which allows the employers to exploit these guest workers even more. I have three arguments in my speech. First, I'm going to talk about how minimum wage laws offer basic protection to the guest workers that come in. Secondly, I'm going to talk about how minimum wage laws make it worthwhile for the migrants that come in. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about how it reduces xenophobic sentiment and how it normalizes political discussion. Firstly, in terms of how it offers basic protection. First subpoint, immigrant workers are susceptible to exploitation regardless of whatever circumstance they are working in, primarily because these are individuals that don't understand the language when they go in. Employers feel that they're expendable primarily because guest workers are recruited en masse from villages, for example, like even suburban areas in countries like Vietnam or Myanmar. They don't have much information on where they're going, on what work they're doing, right? So, for example, like in Malaysia, a lot of maids come into Malaysia thinking that they're going to work in a restaurant, but they work as maids instead for like 6 months to a year, then they run away back to their country, for example, right? And on top of that, they're not guaranteed access to right support groups, right? This means it's easy for employers to cut costs and pay them far below the market rate because of the opacity of the model. It's very opaque, it's very difficult for the government to make these employers accountable. Government can model however they want to regulate and minimize exploitation, but basic protection through minimum wage laws is a far better protection because it's more effective, because it's easier to enforce, and it's a blanket policy, right? On top of that, minimum wage, in cases of exploitation, right, at least it offers a fair proof in the sense that it's easy for workers to file a complaint and bring the employers to court if at all they are exploited or if at all they are paid less. Because it's stated in the statute of the country, right? It's easy for employers to file a complaint because they have a legitimate legal basis to do so. It makes it easier also for support groups to provide legal support for them. It's a legitimate, because they have a legitimate legal basis to protect them. But before that, yes.
Are these workers working there are still on a legitimate basis because they come as a guest worker visa? Why can't we offer them these protections even without minimum wage?
Yeah, because minimum wage is the basic protection you can offer them. There are no other laws apart from minimum wage laws, because the most likely way in which they would be exploited in the first place is through underpaying them. That's the first instance of exploitation that is given to these workers in the first place. How do we make it worthwhile for migrants? Because when these guest workers come in, even if the currency value is higher, the cost of living is also high. Means that whatever money they earn, it offsets the benefits, right? And on top of that, minimum wage levels are typically set at a level that allows employees to cover the basic cost of these, that allows these employees to cover the basic cost of living and save 10 to 20% of their income. So this means that when minimum wage is implemented, they can maximize the remittances that can be given back to their own family, right? Lastly, how do we reduce xenophobic sentiment? There's rising xenophobia in states like Indiana and Virginia, which have a lot of farms, for example, a lot of construction sites, because because the public is channeling their anger to employers and foreign guest workers, right, and foreign workers in general, right? This has effectively distracted political discourse in states like Virginia, where there are lots of low-skilled laborers in concentrated amounts. What happens in ours and what happens to their side is employers recruit these workers on mass because it's cheap. What we do when minimum wage laws are implemented is we equalize the price of foreign labor, of temporary foreign labor, and local labor as well. So this means that employees are likely to favor both these laborers equally. It means that there are less temporary workers on mass and more local workers, more long-term local workers than the past. And this also means that locals will have less things to complain about because they have more vacancies and more spaces opened up for them in the labor force. This would gradually normalize political discussion to actual problems rather than allowing the locals to channel their anger and to scapegoat their anger to temporary workers who never even caused them problems in the first place. Right? To tell you that it improves xenophobic sentiment, it is a more effective way of protecting the rights of these workers, right?
I think I looked at the speech. Yes, you can.
The good thing about opposition is they refuse to engage with the context presented to you. What kind of job do these people really want to do? They're the kind of jobs that locals in those areas wouldn't really want to do. Because when you look at workers' rights or employment law in most of these countries, it requires you to probably give them like a month notice before you fire them. It requires you to probably hire them on a long-term basis. The kind of job guest workers do are the kind of jobs that are seasonal in nature, they are part-time in nature, and will only requires you to actually give a part-time contract to them. But it also means in the beginning of your engagement, you probably will be able to agree to a term of contract like this is the amount you're going to pay me, which means these people already know what they are opting into as opposed to one in which they wouldn't really to begin with. But secondly, it's not just like your permanent job that they want to do, like maybe a factory work or refinery work. They're not going to do this kind of job because number one, those kind of jobs require extensive training, and companies can't just keep training the same set of people every 3 months or every 6 months because it requires a lot more training. So they will probably look to actually hire people on a long-term basis. But the second thing is the reason we use guest work is because these works are part-time in nature. So when you work in a factory or in a construction site, I don't see construction site that takes 3 months. They probably will take 2 years, 3 years for you to build a whole tower. So all these kind of things are things that probably do not fall into this debate. They do not engage with our context. A couple of remarks, right? First, they want to talk about influx of immigrants from developing countries and what that's actually a bad thing. The first thing is this is actually not a very bad thing if you look at it, because when you look at it, these people, the alternative for them is they probably are going to remain in their village where no opportunity actually exists for them. So going into those countries is probably the best opportunity they're going to get. Also understand that John told you extensively that most of the time this company just cannot afford to pay minimum wage because, for example, how are you going to sell an apple that sells for $1? All of a sudden, you're going to have to sell it for $9 because and for for $9 because you have to hire minimum wage or because your wage just suddenly increased. So these are the kind of work that we expect these individuals to do. But also, oftentimes these are people who don't have any opportunity. But secondly, the only reason they want to hire immigrant workers or guest workers is because locals have to be paid minimum wage. The moment in which you impose minimum wage on guest workers, there's no need for guest workers anymore, and then you have to start paying locals, and that becomes a lot more expensive. I think that's much more worse on their side. But thirdly, they want to talk about the fact that locals are going to be mad and they're going to be xenophobic, especially in Virginia and all this kind of things. The problem here is they still want to pay these individuals minimum wage. Let us take them at their best and say, these immigrants actually come into this country, and you make the locals mad by actually paying them minimum wage. I think they're going to be probably far more mad when these people can actually take more job away from the locals than they already do. And these are the kind of jobs locals wouldn't really want to do to begin with. Two things I'm going to do in my speech. Number one, I'm going to tell you why this significantly reduces the problem of illegal immigration. And secondly, I'm going to tell you why this is good for the people on the ground as well as local businesses. Before I go on, Sharwin.
You say that these guest workers will stay there temporarily for a certain year, right? But guest workers can also renew their visa and stay on for longer.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've been in this country on 3 different kind of visa, and I actually know how it works. Whenever you're gonna change the status of your visa, you have to move out of that country to begin with. So, if you're a guest worker, it typically takes 2 weeks to 3 months, and then you have to move out after that. And if you're gonna apply again, it's gonna take a certain amount of time for you to actually reapply before you can go into those countries. So it doesn't work in the way in which they actually want to talk about to begin with. Let's talk about illegal immigration. First, demand for cheap labor. Johnny told you this extensively, in seasonal part-time products, the kind of job locals don't want to do. The products are so inexpensive that you can't just afford to actually hire expensive labor that the minimum wage would require you to. The problem here is the demand for cheap labor is what facilitates and fuels illegal immigration. The problem with illegal immigration on their side is oftentimes they come from things like smuggling, human trafficking that comes as a result of trafficking syndicates, for example, in Latin America, or all these kind of things. It also there's a problem with proper exploitation, because when you are an illegal immigrant, you essentially have no rights. You've broken the first rule of that country. You can't just necessarily go to a police and report I'm being exploited in this way, as opposed to a guest worker who has a legitimate contract and can go to a place the terms of my contract are being violated. You don't even have a right to a contract when you're an illegal immigrant. That is more likely on their side. What changes on our side? The first thing is we provide a legal framework for companies to hire workers that are not illegal. At the same time, it provides them with the benefit of illegal immigrants, which is cheap labor. But the second thing is, oftentimes company would probably opt for this option because company would probably look to avoid legal trouble. Why would they hire illegal immigrants when they have the opportunity to not hire them and to not actually get into any kind of legal jeopardy? I think that's actually very good. But the third thing is, at the very least, on our side, to reduce the problem of human trafficking and illegal immigrants coming into your country to the point in which people are less likely to be xenophobic in the way they want to talk about it. Because the problem with illegal immigrants is not because they've taken Apple job or because they're taking normal job. It's because they're taking normal paying job away from people. You do not have that on our side of the house. But thirdly, we want to tell you how this actually benefits consumers. The first thing is, when you bring in guest workers, what happens? You bring in people who are probably going to be there for a limited number of time. You bring in people who are going to earn money in your country. They're going to spend that money in your country. They're going to facilitate small business. You might facilitate small business. When they do this kind of job, two things happen in your country. The first thing is you significantly reduce the cost of a normal product, everyday products that you do. For example, maybe making food, things like painting that requires you to pay less. But secondly, it's also about how local business also survive. We're talking about small restaurants. We're talking about small businesses that can't afford to pay as many wages as possible. On their side, those small businesses would never exist or would never even survive to begin with, because they have to hire local people who are entitled to minimum wage, and the kind of work they do requires them to actually they make very small profits, small revenue. They have to pay way less. That's a benefit you do not get on the other side. But secondly, we told you that price of things just significantly reduced, normal staple food, for example, apples, fruits, things like painting and other services that these people can actually provide you, essentially reduce the point in which consumers in those countries actually benefit from this. It's not about taking away job. Remember the context we said in this debate. These are the kind of jobs local people in America, in Germany, and in Australia do not want to do. The alternative on the other hand is when you bring illegal immigrants to do this kind of job. These are victims of human trafficking. We're extremely proud to support. Yeah.
Thank you for the speech. Yeah.
I think the easiest thing to forget when it comes to workers is that when they come from a foreign country, they are the easiest individuals to exploit. So this means these individuals are the easiest individuals from big corporations that do agriculture on a short-term basis, like seasonal agriculture on a 3-month cycle, or construction that require phases, but they want to finish that phase as quickly as possible. This means that these corporations are more likely going to take in these types of workers. And these are the types of workers that are the most important stakeholders in today's debate. Because it's not about individuals who pluck apples. They don't necessarily come with a guest worker visa anyway. These are individuals that come with student visas that decide to work in Australia and make money from part-time. I don't necessarily understand why they take guest worker visa specifically to that job for 3 months. Like, I think that's the problem inside government. They shrink the debate to the point where we cannot debate any form of harm at all. This is why opposition prevented a solution and context to you. We told you why corporations and individuals that even want to focus on a 3-month cycle are most likely going to exploit these individuals. No, sit down. So the biggest problem we have is this. Oftentimes when foreign workers come in, they tell you that now you have a legal framework. The premise is you have an agreed term to stay. The problem is these foreign workers are very desperate and are very easy to exploit. Most oftentimes these individuals, big corporations, they go to a certain institution in that specific country and they offer the opportunity that we pay you this much if you work for this long. The problem is in that promise, in a sense, is not kept. And these individuals are starved or work long hours, and eventually at the end of that cycle, they don't get full wage. And the problem is the legal framework says that you must leave the country within 3 months, like what Hashim said, right? So how are they going to bring forward a legal challenge? You are telling me that immigrants who have no opportunity to deny a specific contract are suddenly going to challenge and able to get the agreed terms that they were promised by informal work. Corporations are smart enough to ensure that they are not stuck in this loop. This is why government needs to set state needs to set a framework where corporations cannot exploit, where enforcement is not done on the basis of how good a corporation is or how plentiful a corporation is, but by state themselves. And we tell you that the best enforcement is minimum wage. No, sit down. Second, so my argument essentially is going to come on 2 prongs. First, exploitation, which will basically engage with the entirety of Hashim's speech, and finally on the idea of sentiment. So first of all, on exploitation, right? I think, but before that, just a bit on what is the right of a person having fair salary. I think the lot of benefits that John provides you in his speech is on 2 prongs. 1, small local businesses can benefit, and 2, products will reduce. This does not engage in the idea why an individual who comes there to work, no matter how menial the labor is, no matter how short the work is, why is it that their rights to a fair salary can be traded off just so that products can be cheaper? I think the analysis of why there won't be enough food, these are all things that are not necessarily true in a developed nation. There will always be enough of manufacturing plants, or there will always be enough of individuals working in agriculture to ensure that this produce is allowed. Even if we have to trade off small local businesses from existing, we are fine for this to happen in developed countries. Like the nature of these industries do not contribute significantly to the country in which people are starved to death. And this is the biggest problem from side government. They don't necessarily give you that trade-off and why it's necessary. That is why the PM speech is extremely disingenuous and convenient. No, sit down. Second argument, response, my argument is that Hashim tells you that locals, there are jobs that locals don't want to do. But on that same thread, he later tells you that if you offer minimum wage to foreigners, locals are the ones that will take those jobs. So do you see the tension? Like locals don't want the jobs, but locals will take the jobs if you offer minimum wage, and foreigners won't get the opportunity to improve the economic lifestyle in these opportunities, in this work. And we already told you why the life of these individuals working in these places, if they don't get minimum wage, is worse off than living in wherever they come from, because these individuals are not guaranteed a payment structure, nor are they guaranteed a good cost of life. On top of that, they're consistently discriminated because these individuals are expendable. No, sit down. Why is exploitation worse no matter what the economic output that they can achieve? Because recognizing that these individuals don't have a fair value onto their name, it means that corporations can take in as many menial labor foreign workers as much as possible, where you don't require training. It's very easy to work in agriculture or construction. That's why it's based on a cycle process that doesn't require any form of training. That's why you see the number of deaths that happen in work of agriculture and construction oftentimes happen to foreign labor when they try to expedite the process to ensure that this pay cycle can be done as quick as possible. But before that, sure.
In your role, these workers also stay there for a limited amount of time, which means that you also have the legal way in your role as well.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't these companies exploit even more, given that they pay you more?
How are they going to exploit you if for every hour you work, you get a certain set amount of money? So this is what I don't understand. We told you why support groups or why individuals have a specific contact that they must write, or when they don't, when it's easy to see on your audit, it's extremely difficult for companies to exploit. We are not saying exploitation will become zero, but it's definitely easier to catch exploitation as compared to your side. So why would they care about the large pool of workers, right? And secondly, because these workers are expendable, because the fact that they pay them close to nothing, if individuals die or if these immigrants oftentimes go through health issues, they are not protected by the company, because the value that they provide to this company is extremely expendable. Because if you pass away or you die, it's very easy for me to replace you because I have a large pool of workers, because I'm paying a lot of workers little. As opposed to if you give them minimum labor, I think it's better to the extent where companies value more, because they pay you a specific set amount. They have to ensure that you are protected in all instances so that they don't lose the investment. If it is true that companies are profit incentivized, then we have to fit into that context of how we protect workers best. And I think the best way we can do that is by providing an inherent value to these individuals. And the best way to provide a value that does not hurt this corporation is by giving them minimum wage. Final argument on sentiment increasing. Like what Sharwin told you, in most of these countries, the sentiment against immigration is increasing. For America, it's against Mexicans. For Australians, it's against the Southeast Asian workers. For Germany, it's individuals who are coming from Eastern European countries. These are problems that exist because even if people don't really care about their jobs, they see a sudden influx of workers continuously coming in. This is why people are inherently afraid, especially conservative individuals. At the point of which we tell you where companies have to choose between a foreign and local worker and choose a local worker, it's more likely that these individuals will reduce the sentiment. For those reasons, very short report.
Then yellow flag speech,
First thing I don't get about what they're saying, they provide enough structural reasons as to why these foreign workers aren't able to mount a legal challenge, because they come from poor countries, they have poor education, and they are at the leverage of the people hiring them. And then they suddenly say, just because you have minimum wage, you're suddenly able to do all of these things. You're able to mount a legal challenge, you're able to challenge your bosses and do all of these things without actually detailing you as to how this will be achieved. They say it's going to give you some value, inherent value, but how would that actually break those structural reasons that you have provided for us to actually be able for others to actually be able to mount the legal challenge? So also, like, 3 pieces of my experience regarding if I move on to my arguments as to why we want this play. So firstly, they have not really engaged in our context. We, the entirety of this Hashim's speech, have engaged in their context of like these workers being illegal or being immigrants or being migrant workers. But they have not. They have just dismissed our context of tourist visas and why is it good even in that particular context. Yes. Secondly, is that they assume that the visas that exist in our world doesn't provide any sort of legal framework Visas in particular, to sit down, provide you access to, like, for example, the complaints tribunal, where workers can actually access this complaints tribunal if they feel that they are being abused. This is actually a form of protection. Yes, they might not get the minimum wage, but they can still complain to a tribunal because they are there legally. We think that this is particularly important. Particularly important, and also this idea about context. We need to understand. Hashim, when he was talking about how it would increase xenophobia, he was talking in their context. They claim that we're going to pay everyone equally. We're going to have this guest worker visas. Everyone is going to be paid equally. So therefore, suddenly it's going to equalize it, and the locals will be happy with the foreigners. We don't think that's how it works. If the locals in a very xenophobic country suddenly see foreigners being treated equally, being treated as equal as a member of citizens, what's the more likely outcome? What's the more likely reaction? The more likely reaction is to rail against these foreigners. We don't think this is necessarily something important. We think at the very least, providing them a visa without necessarily calling them equals is something that would actually be a step against xenophobia. So let's move on into and another thing that they have not really mentioned about is this characteristic or the characterization that John gave as to why these people are not like minimum wage workers, because obviously they work seasonally and they are not looking to live there long term, so they don't look to build a living wage. No, because minimum wage requires you to pay a living wage that you would actually be able to develop a family for you. But these workers don't meet those standards, so we think it's principally fair for them not to be paid there. But they still need protections, and these protections can only come in the form of guest worker visas. So let's move on to the arguments. So let's talk about like this xenophobia thing and which world is more likely to be xenophobic. We think that in a world where foreign workers are given the guest worker rights, are given the ability to access legal frameworks, but are not paid equally, is a world that is more preferable for these xenophobic nations, because at the very least they can see the distinction between me as a member of this, as a citizen of that country versus a member that is not of that country. We think in their world that is not necessarily what will happen. So, but also like we also have talked about how it would actually benefit local businesses. Oftentimes, these local businesses work on they work on like limited amount of capital. So when they have a limited amount of capital, they need to ensure that it's long lasting. So when you demand that they pay the minimum wage, it's a significant amount of increase to the cost to the overhead cost that these local businesses will face. Why is this necessarily bad? If you force them to also pay high wages to these seasonal workers, what will happen? What will happen is that you will kill the businesses. You will kill the local businesses that exist in this world, in this particular economy. Why is that bad for the locals? If you kill local businesses and if you kill small businesses that are looking to survive, you are killing the opportunities of these locals to actually own methods of capital. So this is necessarily something that is extremely bad. But before that, yes,
Is local businesses' ability to sustain more important than immigrant rights?
no. The thing is, by providing guest worker visas while not demanding that they pay minimum wage, we're protecting both by actually giving, firstly, we're giving the local businesses an opportunity to survive, an opportunity to access lower costs to transfer those lower costs to consumers, but also to protect these immigrant workers, to actually have them have legal access to a framework that would allow them to vet their opportunities. But even then, even if you take in the best case scenario, which is you saying this program would be abused, that companies would import these workers en masse and and abuse these people. We say that it's a form of protection, because guest worker visas often ends like 3 months or 4 months. So at that 4 months, we're ending the exploitation. These workers have to go back home. This is something that is necessarily important. So they can't. This is necessarily a form of protection. Yes. The alternative is simple. The alternative is people working here for 6 months visas or 7 months visas or temporary work visas and not being able to go back home afterwards. We think that having this guest worker visa would actually provide an important form of protection for them. So we also think also they have not really responded as to why locals would necessarily want to work these jobs that are seasonal in nature. You need to work within the context and need to respond to the context that it hasn't been responded to. Finally, we talk about how it will benefit the consumers within that particular area. Because consumers oftentimes have like high cost of living. They want cheaper food. They want cheaper access to to cheaper cost of living, so they can contribute to society. This is a way for a win-win solution to be garnered. In a way where we can utilize these tourists coming into the country to utilize their productivity and provide for a lower cost of living for the people living within those communities. We think that this is extremely beneficial and has not actually been handled with. And it will actually result in a reduction of xenophobia when they see the value of these people who comes to the country but provide value to this country without actually competing with the locals in the jobs that they particularly need. We think that this is a win-win solution that must be pursued at all costs. For this reason, support the motion.
I think that was that stage to end in substantive speeches. I'm going to here.
When you're an immigrant worker who comes to another country, there are mainly 4 characteristics which you will either be a part of. Number 1, either you come here and you're severely underpaid. Number 2, either you come here on a really short-term basis and you're really looking for the opportunity to extend your time or to be able to achieve something greater than what was promised you. Number 3, oftentimes these people are uninformed, meaning as Sharwin contextualized you, usually you come in on time, not even knowing what kind of job, maybe not knowing what kind of pay you're getting, but just with the promise they're going to make more. And oftentimes they come within cycles, meaning that you're oftentimes coming here not knowing whether you're going to stay longer, but promise that you'll be given a cycle again. These are characteristics that both sides of the House of Race debate agree on. And these are characteristics which we tell you disenfranchise these people to a large extent. Meaning that these are characteristics in which they're easily exploited and things we cannot debate on. Meaning that the solution to this debate has to be catered around how exactly do we provide a best kind of platform, how exactly do we provide a best kind of solution to cater to these kind of people who are vulnerable in the societies. I'm going to talk to you about 3 things in my speech. Number 1, I'm going to talk to you about the scale of exploitation. Number 2, I'm going to tell you why exactly local businesses and consumers are the biggest stakeholder in this debate, and we're going to tell you why we provide a better world for the locals in itself. Firstly, on the scale of exploitation, because understand this, what was the solution that we gave you? We gave you the solution to how exactly you don't exploit them. Number 1, you give them a basic legal framework. The reason on why this argumentation is so much more better than their solution of this leaving is understanding on how exactly a short-term basis works. Because of the very fact that they're here on a short-term basis, means that it's easy to exploit them without them even having any forms of way to actually come back to you. Meaning that the very fact that it's easy for you to just send them off when they have any form of labor, build any forms of ways of challenging the exploitation you have, it's easy for them to send them off and never bring them again. Meaning that our solution caters for the most vulnerable members of society because you allow them the basic forms of opportunity which is embedded in these statutes compared to what exists on. Because the reason why their solution for just making them leave does not work is because of the nature of which these workers want. Meaning that they inherently want to make more money and they inherently want to get along with them better. Meaning they're more likely to actually just push away the forms of exploitation or push away the form of discrimination in the likelihood of actually staying longer. Means they're more likely to accept the kind of discrimination and exploitation against. And this is not what we want. We are not okay with you providing some form of framework which is just them leaving with them when the very fact that they are coerced into these situations that will not have any forms of backing. We tell you that we're providing them a basic legal framework and we give you many analysis of how exactly providing them, for example, with basic minimum wage allows them to have some form of legal backing and it's easier for them to challenge these people on the first place. Sit down. Secondly, because all their forms of argumentations are not to rebut the very fact that exploitation happened. It's just to argue that our benefits are better. So what did they do? And this is where it's highly problematic in the case. They're talking about 2 simple things throughout all the speeches. Number 1, how local business survive and how this benefits consumers. I'm going to take this down structurally. Firstly, on local businesses survive because they claim that you're able to create a larger form of consumer good simply by reducing rates. 2 responses. Number 1, if, for example, you can somehow reduce your cost significantly, it means that the premise is that you're significantly exploiting people to large amounts. And we're telling them we're not okay with this because if your context is how you can severely increase
or reduce the cost of producing a product means you're severely exploiting these people and not giving them any forms of minimum wage anywhere. This we're not finding. Secondly, they have not told us how exactly these local businesses are dependent on these consumers, because we tell you that local businesses already have, especially in developing countries, already have other things in which they can survive. Meaning the market is large and the market is free, meaning that they're not dependent on reducing their cost to large marginal amount for them to be able to survive. So we don't understand why local business on their side will not be okay. But even if we tell you that we are totally fine with trading on local business, we don't see why it's okay for us to allow local business to survive simply at the expense of exploiting people. Because what exactly is the impact to these local businesses? And this is where it's highly damaging to the case. Because understand this, that consumers will never reduce the price, meaning that if consumers are able to exploit people and reduce the prices, they're just going to maintain the price for people so they can get more revenue. It means you give us no form of incentive why private local businesses are incentivized to reduce their selling cost just because they reduce their overhead cost and therefore will be cheaper for consumers. We see that in the world that we live in, especially in developing nations where you live in a very competitive market and we allow people to exploit these people, this is when you will not reduce the price for consumers, but you reduce the overhead cost in order to increase your revenue. So we see under your side, if at the end of the day you still want to protect consumers, consumers are not protected, you only get to benefit these privatized companies who want to increase their revenue at the expense of exploitation.
Sure. If you offer them the same minimum wage as the workers, as the locals, why would this company hire guest workers to begin with?
So here's the thing. This debate revolves around two premises. Number one, jobs in which locals and immigrant workers want, and jobs which immigrant workers don't want. How do you win under both sides? Number one, where we see that both locals and immigrants want this job, we prevent xenophobia in the sense that when we provide minimum wage, it means that these employers will not simply go for these immigrants because it's cheaper. Meaning that locals now have an equal playing field. Because of the status quo in which you can easily exploit immigrant workers because they're so much more cheaper, this is when locals don't have an opportunity. And when locals do not have an opportunity because simply you cannot exploit local people and reduce their minimum wages, this is when it's harmful, and this is when they're more likely to actually shit on other immigrant workers because they don't have equal opportunities for this low-skill job. But when it comes to jobs in which locals do not want, we tell you that that's when there is no challenge to actually locals, and that is when the larger impact or the largest stakeholder that we have to protect are these immigrant workers who are highly exploited. Because nowhere in the speeches at all do they trade off to why exactly it is not. Why exactly is it more important for us to protect consumers in this debate or protect these private entities in this debate rather than these people? So why did we get into this debate? We gave you 4 levels of argumentations, and this is why we did this debate. Because we told you, number one, how exploitation happened at better day. There were no forms of rebuttals to why exactly these immigrants, number one, would be able to live better. We already told you how, apart from you being inherently susceptible to these forms of discrimination, we tell you that you have to cover your cost of living and still be able to send money back. In circumstances like this, we tell you that providing a minimum wage or providing a legal basis for them to have a better form of life allows these people to have better forms of representation in this country and better forms of standard of living. We don't see why under their case, somehow by how the benefits that they bring to this debate, meaning that benefiting consumers, is therefore greater. We tell you that these private businesses will already have a legal basis to survive. We tell you that these businesses already can survive, and it's not a reason for exploit people. What are things that we're not responding to? We told you on many forms of analysis why exactly xenophobia increases on large scale. They told you that xenophobia somehow reduces because people see this as equality. Because this is not the case. So why, in the end of the day, this side opposition wins this speaker? Because we told you how exactly we provide for a better legal basis or a better platform for people to actually obtain these kinds of lives for themselves. We tell you how exactly local businesses are not the biggest entity for us to protect today. And even if you want to protect local businesses will not thrive because consumers will still be screwed over by the profit incentive that these businesses have, and these local businesses will not suffer in and of itself. If you want to see a world in xenophobia is reduced, if you want to see a world where basic legal rights will still be protected, go inside opposition.
Yeah. I think I will let speech begin reply speeches and I will reply.
First things first, who are the individuals that are most likely going to opt into guest work visas? Because I think this is the biggest or most important form of contextualization that side opposition takes to break very, very clearly. We told you, individuals who want to work oftentimes don't have the opportunity because it's extremely difficult to get high-paying jobs. It's extremely difficult to even get jobs to begin with. That is why most oftentimes corporations who dine for cheap labor go and enter this situation and then tell you, this is the amount of money that I will pay you if you work for 3 months. This is correct on their side. What happens is then, when they finish that cycle, corporations don't pay them that amount. And what do these individuals do? These individuals have only one of two options. Either A, corporations tell them, we will pay you if you stay here legally, like I told you in my speech, or B, they leave without getting any form of significant salary. On both of these instances is bad. On a comparative, what happens under our world? Individuals or corporations who go and interject the stations means that these individuals don't have to promise anything, these corporations don't have to promise anything. The moment there is an employee-employee relationship, statute dignifies that they must get minimum wage. And it's extremely easy to enforce on two levels. It's not because immigrants suddenly become smarter, it's because groups who care about immigrants or individuals who care about immigrants find it very easy to go and enforce these laws because it's written on a statute that is compromising. That specific number is apparent. This means it's extremely easy to call out for corporations who continuously exploit on a cycle-to-cycle basis. This means whatever exploitations that happen can be mitigated best under our side. I think this analysis was never rebutted from side government. All they tell you is that we don't understand how. Whenever that you enshrine a statute, it becomes increasingly easier to enforce. That was the simple line of argument that came from side opposition. Second, we told you why exploitation is worse because these immigrants now become expendable. At the point of which corporations can continuously take in as many expendable labor as possible, this is when you increase the bursts of immigrants that enter your country. It means that for a 10% job, most oftentimes corporations can afford taking 30 people because if 20 people get sick or 20 or if 5 people die, they are easily replaced. How does that change under our side? When you attach a value onto a person or to a worker's head, it means that corporations have to care about these individuals. They have to ensure that they are not expendable. How does this work on two levels of our argumentation? First, if they are less, if they have increased value, the likeliness of exploitation where they have to work longer hours to make up for a bigger salary, or the likeliness of companies forcing them to do difficult labor without proper safety equipment is reduced because they are paying a lot of money and because they cannot afford taking more workers either from outside or either from locals. Right? B, how does this reduce xenophobia and sentiment? Because it means there's less bursts of immigrants. Like in Nevyn's speeches, the two classifications of jobs. In the instances where both local and foreigners want those jobs, it's more likely corporations will take local workers because they don't have to bear the cost of logistics or the language barrier. This means that there's less bursts of immigrants in the first place. Secondly, because they cannot afford to take in a large pool of immigrants, it means for a simple job that even the locals don't want to do it, means that there are less immigrants essentially doing it. On a scale, this definitely reduces the visceral imaging of sentiment that is continuously increasing in these instances and continuously discriminates against these immigrants. Don't buy the characterization just because you come from a poor country. It means that living in a country where you get poor salary, continuously discriminated upon and have no safety regulations, and it's extremely difficult to fight for your rights, means that it's suddenly better from staying from whatever country you come from. These are the simple lines of argumentation that came from us. And in the end, all they defended was local businesses in developed countries that don't necessarily pay a big stake, and product and consumers who are necessarily rich enough to afford a high degree of product are suddenly extremely important in today's debate. I think in this debate, worker rights are absolute, and we are the ones that show you who protect the most.
I think I'll reply to any debate of Matt here.
The problem with the opposition's case is that the issue that they want to talk about is either not comparative or it is not mutually exclusive. Let's go into one by one. I'll be talking about first the things that they want to talk about, exploitation and xenophobia, and then I'll move on to our best case and why, and I'll be less generous later on in my speech. First, regarding exploitation, to which side better protects its workers from exploitation? I think that in terms of the legal capacity for you to do it, it will be simple because you're still here, registered as a worker under a visa, and you still have access to the embassy. You still have access to legal ways in order for you to get whatever you want. Look at the reasons why they said that we don't get that in our. They do that because we stay for too short of a time. But we think that, well, they also stay for short. We think that if it is true that you have cycles and go in and out of this country multiple times, that means that that gives you multiple opportunities for you to fight for your cause, right? We think that to fight for your cause. So we think that in terms of the legal avenue, it will probably be. They also go to but blanket policy makes everything easier, right? I think that's not necessarily the case. I think that in terms of enforcement, because of the fact that they have a visa, if there was going to be a problem in enforcement, that problem with enforcement will still exist in their role and their own region. So I think that enforcement will be similar in both roles as well. Let's talk about the payment. They said, but at least you get minimum wages and minimum amount of payment. We told you that that doesn't necessarily mean that you are exploited just because you are paid less. I asked them in my field, if you are paid more, why don't these companies exploit you even more? Given that they've invested a lot of money in you, they probably want to push you to do a lot more work. We think that in terms of like payments and all that, daily payments exist, right? You can give cash. And we think that if they suddenly don't give cash or they treat their workers badly, next time these people won't want to come, right? We think that let's talk about the contextualization that they wanted to do. They say that, these workers are extremely desperate and they're truly needy, and these are people from like these terrible countries who have very difficult times. Now, if that was true and if that was the case, Hashim already provided to you in an absence of these of this policy, where you come with a visa with minimum wage and without minimum wage. If they wanted to add a visa with minimum wage, companies are more likely to hire locals and no longer hire these immigrants. But what happens then is that these immigrants, there is still a demand for cheap labor. What happens then is that you cause this illegal immigration and cause them to be smuggled into this country and they're forced to work. But the problem is that these people in their role are still desperate. They're still looking for jobs. They will still come anyway. The difference then is that companies don't give them that visa. They don't come underneath the visa, and the lives in their role for these immigrants becomes a lot worse. So we said in terms of exploitation, there's a high probability of them to be exploited in their role anyway, just using the contextualization practices that they gave in their speeches. Now let's talk about people that we want to talk about, right? People who come just because like they have like that amount of free time. They never told us why is it in these circumstances is it still something that is bad. They have engaged with them, but they've never engaged with our stakeholder. And why is it in our that is still something that's problematic? We think that still stands at the end of this debate. Therefore, we take that issue. Second thing that we want to talk about is regarding xenophobia, whether or not they cause actual xenophobia is level. We think that xenophobia will probably be similar in both worlds, because like if you're gonna hate immigrants, you're gonna hate immigrants anyway, right? But we told you that there's a higher probability if these immigrants are given the same opportunities as these locals, that's when locals feel that they've been betrayed. But because if it's jobs that are paid less and there are jobs that locals are not interested in, they have no reason to be angry, and therefore we think that that's where that xenophobia in their world doesn't necessarily add on, in xenophobia in our world doesn't necessarily increase. So I probably think that xenophobia in your world will be similar. That brings an issue that if exploitation and xenophobia are similar, this means that all your local businesses and the ability for consumers to get low prices is still a net benefit in which they agree to. As I told you earlier on in my prime minister's speech, as long as there is that form of benefit, that means that that's something that we're willing to support. We've given you those benefits, we've mitigated their harms, we take this debate extremely seriously.
Thank you for the debate on the logic and thank you.
All that. Yeah, I'll try that.